In a galaxy far, far away, there was a planet called Zorax. The people who lived on Zorax were not like the people on Earth. They were much taller and stronger than humans. They had blue skin and big black eyes. Zorax was a very advanced planet. They had amazing technology that could do things humans could only dream of. One of the most popular places on Zorax was the gym. But this was not a normal gym like the ones on Earth. The Zorax gym was huge and shiny. It had machines that could change gravity, make you run faster, and lift incredibly heavy things. Many Zoraxians loved going to this gym to get stronger and show off their power. The strongest Zoraxian of all was a man named Zoltar. He was the champion of the gym. No one could lift as much as him. His muscles were so big that he looked like he could lift a whole spaceship. Zoltar's girlfriend was a beautiful Zoraxian named Zora. She was always by his side, cheering him on and telling everyone how amazing he was. Zora loved Zoltar very much and was proud to be his girlfriend. But not everyone was happy about Zoltar being the champion. A young Zoraxian named Zax wanted to be the strongest. He was jealous of Zoltar and always tried to beat him. But no matter how hard Zax trained, he could never lift as much as Zoltar. This made Zax very angry. One day, something strange happened on Zorax. A spaceship from a planet called Earth landed near the gym. The Zoraxians had never seen humans before. They were curious about what these small, weak-looking creatures were doing on their planet. The human spaceship was broken and needed to be fixed. While the human crew worked on the repairs, they decided to explore Zorax. They had never been to an alien planet before and wanted to see what it was like. One of the humans, a man named John, was very interested in the Zorax gym. He had always loved going to the gym on Earth and wanted to see how it was different on another planet. John entered the gym and looked around in amazement. He had never seen anything like it before. The machines were so advanced, and the Zoraxians were so big and strong. He felt like a little child in a room full of giants. The Zoraxians in the gym stopped what they were doing and stared at John. They had never seen a human in their gym before. Some of them looked curious, but most of them looked like they wanted to laugh. "What is that puny thing doing here?" Zax said loudly, pointing at John. "This gym is for real warriors, not weaklings from Earth." The other Zoraxians laughed at Zax's comment. They all thought it was very funny to see a small human in their gym. John felt embarrassed by all the attention. He knew he must look very strange and weak to these aliens, but he didn't want to leave. He had come here to see what the gym was like, and he was going to stay. Zoltar looked at John with a smirk on his face. He thought it was amusing to see a human in his gym. He wondered what John would do. Would he run away in fear, or would he try to use the machines and embarrass himself even more? "Hey, human," Zoltar called out. "Why don't you come over here and show us what you can do? Let's see how strong you Earthlings really are." The other Zoraxians cheered and laughed. They wanted to see the human make a fool of himself. This was going to be entertaining. John hesitated. He didn't want to embarrass himself in front of all these aliens. But he also didn't want to back down from a challenge. He had his pride as a human. Taking a deep breath, John walked over to where Zoltar was standing. He looked up at the huge Zoraxian champion towering over him. "All right," John said, trying to sound confident. "What do you want me to do?" Zoltar grinned, his sharp teeth glinting. He pointed to a massive weightlifting machine nearby. "Let's start with something easy," Zoltar said. "Let's see if you can lift even a fraction of what I can, little human." The alien crowd gathered around, eagerly waiting to see what would happen next. John stared at the intimidating machine, wondering what he had gotten himself into. John walked into the alien gym, feeling nervous but also curious. He had never seen exercise equipment like this before. Everything was sleek, shiny, and much larger than what he was used to on Earth. The Zoraxians all stopped what they were doing and stared at John. They towered over him, with bulging muscles and intense expressions. John felt like a mouse that had wandered into a den of lions. What is that puny creature doing here? Sneered Zax, a young Zoraxian with a chip on his shoulder. This gym is for real warriors, not weak little humans. The other aliens laughed and nodded in agreement. They clearly did not think John belonged in their sacred training space. John's face turned red with embarrassment, but he tried to stand tall. "I'm just here to check out your facility," he said, attempting to sound casual. "I'm interested to see how you train." This caused another round of mocking laughter from the Zoraxians. Zoltar, the reigning champion, stepped forward with a condescending smile. "You? Interested in our training?" Zoltar scoffed. "I doubt a scrawny thing like you could even handle our warm-up routine." His girlfriend Zora draped herself over his arm, gazing at John with pity. Poor little human. He has no idea what real strength is. John gritted his teeth, his pride stung by their taunts. He knew he was out of his league here, but he hated being looked down upon. Zax sauntered up to John, flexing his massive biceps. "Tell you what, human, why don't we have a little contest? You and me, weightlifting. We'll see how your earth muscles compare to mine." John's eyes widened. He knew this was a bad idea. Zax was easily 3 times his size, and clearly no stranger to lifting massive weights. But with all the aliens jeering at him, he felt he had no choice. "All right, I'm in," John said, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. "Let's do this." The Zoraxians cheered and gathered around the weightlifting area, eager to watch the human embarrass himself. Zoltar clapped Zax on the back. "This will be over quickly," he chuckled. "Earthling, I hope you've said your goodbyes. Zax is going to crush you like a zornfly." Zax strutted up to the alien barbell, which was easily as long as John was tall. He gripped it with his meaty hands, took a breath, and heaved it up over his head with a grunt. The crowd went wild, shouting Zax's name. He held the tremendous weight aloft, his muscles bulging, a smug grin on his face. After a long moment, he slammed it back down to the floor, leaving a dent in the reinforced metal. "Beat that, human," Zax roared, beating his chest. "That was just my warm-up weight." John swallowed hard, staring at the barbell. It probably weighed more than his entire spaceship. What had he gotten himself into? The aliens shoved him forward, laughing and placing bets on how quickly he would fail. John approached the weight, his heart hammering in his chest. He wrapped his hands around the textured metal, took a deep breath, and heaved with all his might. The barbell didn't budge an inch. John strained, his face turning red, veins popping out on his forehead. But the weight remained firmly on the ground. The Zoraxians roared with laughter, pointing at John as he struggled pathetically. Tears of humiliation pricked at the corners of his eyes. He had never felt so weak, so utterly overpowered. Zax sauntered over, smirking down at John's red face. "Give it up, human. You're embarrassing yourself. Just admit that your kind are inferior and get off our planet." John released the weight and stood up, his arms trembling from the effort. He looked around at the sneering alien faces, shame washing over him. Maybe Zax was right. Maybe he should just give up and leave with his tail between his legs. But then something inside John snapped. A surge of defiance, of human pride, welled up inside his chest. No, he wouldn't let these aliens humiliate his entire species. He was going to show them what humans were made of, even if it killed him. He turned to Zax, meeting the alien's smug gaze with a determined glare of his own. "I'm not giving up," John declared. "In fact, I challenge you to a real competition. Not just one lift. A full test of strength, Earth against Zorax. I'll prove to you that humans are stronger than you think." The gym fell silent, the aliens staring at John in shock. No one had ever dared to challenge Zax like that. Zoltar frowned, intrigued despite himself. Zax threw his head back and laughed. "You've got guts, Earthling. I'll give you that. Fine. I accept your little challenge. Prepare to be destroyed." As the aliens cheered and hollered, John took a deep breath, praying that his impulsive mouth hadn't just doomed him to a very painful defeat. The entire gym fell silent as the aliens gathered around to watch the impending contest between Zax and John. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Everyone fully expected the human to fail miserably against the mighty Zoraxian warrior. Zoltar, the reigning champion, stepped forward with a smug grin. He pointed at John and loudly proclaimed, "This weak earthling doesn't stand a chance against a Zoraxian child, let alone a seasoned lifter like Zax." The crowd cheered and laughed at Zoltar's boast. He continued, "In fact, I'm so confident in Zax's victory. I'll bet 100 Zorax credits that the human won't even be able to lift Zax's warm-up weight." Zora, Zoltar's ever-present girlfriend, clung to his arm and cooed, "Oh, Zoltar, you're so strong and wise. Of course, this pitiful human will lose." John stood to the side, trying to block out the jeers and taunts. He knew he was at a severe disadvantage in terms of raw strength. But he also knew that humans had other qualities that could prove useful: determination, ingenuity, and the ability to strategize. The challenge began with Zax stepping up to his enormous barbell, the one he had easily lifted minutes before. With a roar, the enormous alien heaved the weight above his head, his muscles bulging grotesquely. He held it aloft for several long seconds, basking in the cheers of his fellow Zoraxians, before slamming it back down. "Beat that, earthling," Zax crowed, stepping back from the barbell. "Though we both know you can't." John approached the weight, his heart hammering but his face determined. He knew he wouldn't be able to lift it in the same way Zax had. The alien probably had 5 times his strength, but perhaps he could use leverage and technique to his advantage. The human walked around the barbell, examining it from all angles as the crowd mocked him. They assumed he was stalling out of fear, but John was actually looking for any design differences compared to Earth barbells that he could exploit. After a minute, John nodded to himself. He had a plan. It was a long shot, but it was better than simply trying to muscle through like Zax. John approached the center of the barbell and gripped it tightly. But instead of trying to lift from a standing position, as Zax had, John sat down on the floor and laid back, pulling the barbell up towards his chest. The crowd fell silent, confused. What was the human doing? This wasn't how you were supposed to lift. But to their shock, inch by inch, John managed to pull the colossal weight up off the floor until it rested on his chest. His face was bright red, the veins in his neck bulging from the strain. But slowly, steadily, he pressed the barbell up until his arms were fully extended. John had done it. Using a supine bench press technique, he had managed to lift the same weight as Zax, though it had taken every ounce of his strength and willpower. The gym was dead silent save for John's ragged breathing. The Zoraxians stared in utter disbelief. Zax's jaw hung open. Even Zoltar looked stunned. Slowly, painfully, John tilted the weight to one side and let it crash to the floor as he rolled away. He stood up on trembling legs, sweat pouring down his face. He had completed the lift. He had matched Zax. The human had proven that Earthlings weren't as weak as the aliens assumed. But John knew this was only the beginning. Zax would surely demand a rematch with increased weight, and who knew what other challenges the Zoraxians would come up with to try to put the human in his place. As the crowd began to mutter and whisper, with some openly accusing John of cheating, the human took a deep breath and turned to face Zax. "I lifted your weight," John said between heavy breaths. "What's next?" Zax's shock was quickly turning to anger. He wouldn't let a mere earthling show him up, especially not in front of his own people. "We've barely begun, human," Zax growled, stalking forward. "That was a clever trick. But tricks won't save you in a real test of strength. Prepare yourself." John swallowed hard, but held his ground. He had sparked a glimmer of doubt in the Zoraxian's superiority. Now he had to fan that spark into a flame, or risk being utterly crushed by Zax's wounded pride. The true challenge was only just beginning. The Zoraxians stared in utter disbelief as John managed to lift the same enormous weight that Zax had just moments before. The human had used an unconventional technique, but there was no denying that he had successfully completed the lift. The crowd was stunned into silence. John, his face red and dripping with sweat, stood up shakily. He turned to Zax and said politely, "I matched your weight. What would you like to do next?" Zax, still reeling from the shock of seeing a human match his strength, shook his head angrily. "You must have cheated somehow. There's no way a puny earthling could lift that much." John shrugged. "I assure you, I did not cheat. I simply used a technique that allowed me to leverage my strength more efficiently. If you'd like, we can increase the weight and try again." The Zoraxians began to mutter amongst themselves. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Was this human actually challenging Zax to lift even more? Zoltar stepped forward, his eyes narrowed. "Very well, Earthling. Let's see how you handle double the weight. Zax, load it up." Zax, fuming at being shown up by a human, stalked over to the weight stack and began adding more plates to the barbell. The metal bars groaned under the strain of the additional hundreds of pounds. John watched calmly, mentally calculating how he would need to adjust his technique to handle the increased load. He knew he was pushing his body to its absolute limits, but he refused to back down. When Zax finished loading the weights, he stepped back and crossed his arms, smirking. "There, that's double what we lifted before. Let's see you match that, human." John approached the barbell, which was now bending slightly in the middle from the sheer mass of the weights. He took a deep breath, positioned himself carefully, and gripped the bar. With an enormous grunt of effort, John began to lift. The veins in his neck bulged, and his face turned a deep shade of purple as he strained against the colossal weight. The Zoraxians leaned forward, expecting him to fail at any moment. But slowly, incredibly, the barbell began to rise. Inch by agonizing inch, John forced the weights up, his entire body trembling with the effort. The aliens watched in awe as the human not only lifted the double weight, but managed to press it fully overhead, his arms locked out. John held the weight there for a long moment, his body shaking, before letting it fall to the ground with an enormous crash. The floor of the gym actually cracked under the impact. The human staggered back, his chest heaving as he gulped in air. He had done it. He had lifted double the weight that had challenged even the mighty Zax. The gym was silent enough to hear a pin drop. The Zoraxians stared at John, their expressions a mix of shock, disbelief, and even a hint of respect. Zax, however, looked livid. His face was dark with rage and humiliation at being bested by a human. "This is impossible," he roared. "You must be using some kind of illegal enhancement. I demand an investigation." Zoltar held up a hand. "Peace, Zax. We will indeed investigate to ensure the integrity of this contest. But for now, we must acknowledge the human's feat of strength. It seems we may have underestimated the power of these earthlings." As the Zoraxians began to whisper and murmur amongst themselves, John stood tall despite his exhaustion. He had proven that human strength and determination could match even the most powerful aliens. But the challenge was far from over. With Zax's accusations of cheating, John knew he would have to face even more trials to fully earn the respect of these extraterrestrial warriors. The path ahead would be difficult, but John was ready to face it head-on. He would show the galaxy what humans were truly made of, one incredible feat at a time. Following John's incredible feat of strength, Zax immediately demanded an investigation into the integrity of the challenge. He accused the human of cheating, insisting that no earthling could possibly be that strong. Zoltar, ever the fair leader, agreed to have the gym staff inspect the weights to ensure they were regulation. The staff meticulously tested each plate, confirming they were indeed the standard weights used in all Zoraxian lifting competitions. There was no evidence of foul play. Zax, however, refused to accept this. His pride had been severely wounded by being bested by a human, and he grasped for any excuse to discredit John's achievement. In a last-ditch effort to undermine the human success, Zax pointed an accusing finger at John's workout attire. "It must be his clothing," Zax declared. "That strange, tight-fitting outfit must be some kind of high-tech human suit designed to enhance his strength. It's the only explanation." John looked down at his simple tank top and shorts, bemused. "This is just standard human workout gear," he explained patiently. "It's designed for comfort and range of motion, not strength enhancement." But Zax would not be dissuaded. He insisted that the only way to prove John's strength was legitimate would be for the human to strip down and lift wearing only the bare minimum. Zoltar, though skeptical of Zax's claims, nodded in agreement. "Very well. To put an end to any doubts, the human will lift again wearing only what is necessary for modesty. John, do you agree to these terms?" John sighed but nodded. "If that's what it takes to prove my strength is my own, then so be it." Under the watchful eyes of the Zoraxians, John removed his shirt and shoes, stripping down to just his shorts. He approached the weighted barbell, now acutely aware of his comparative lack of bulk next to the muscular aliens. With a deep breath, John assumed his stance, gripped the bar, and began to lift. Despite the lack of his usual attire, his form remained impeccable. He strained against the massive weight, his bare skin flushing with exertion, but slowly and surely the barbell rose. The Zoraxians watched in awe as the human, clad in nothing but a simple pair of shorts, pressed the enormous weight overhead. It was now undeniable that John's strength came from within, not from any external aid. As John held the weight aloft, his muscles trembling from the effort, even Zax could not form any further objections. The human had proven, beyond any doubt, that his power was real and his own. Zoltar stepped forward as John lowered the weight back to the ground with a resounding thud. "It seems we have our answer," the Zoraxian leader declared. "The human strength is genuine. He has bested our challenge fair and square." Faced with this undeniable proof of John's abilities, Zax fell silent, seething with a mix of anger and begrudging respect. The other Zoraxians began to murmur amongst themselves, their perception of humans shifting in light of John's display. John, breathing heavily from his exertion, looked around at the aliens. "I hope this puts to rest any doubts about my strength or the capabilities of humans," he said firmly. "We may not be as physically imposing as Zoraxians, but we have our own unique strengths." Zoltar nodded thoughtfully. "Indeed, it seems we have much to learn about humans. John, you have opened our eyes to the potential of your species. We would be honored if you would share more of your knowledge and techniques with us." As the Zoraxians gathered around John, their former disdain replaced with curiosity and admiration, the human felt a surge of pride. He had not only proven his own worth, but had begun to bridge the gap between their species. There was still much to be done, but John knew that this was a pivotal moment. He had shown that humans could not only hold their own among the stars, but could offer valuable insights and abilities to the galactic community. The future was looking brighter for human-alien relations, and it had all started with a simple display of strength in a Zoraxian gym. As the Zoraxians gathered around John, eager to learn from his impressive display of strength, Zora's keen eye noticed something peculiar about the human's lifting technique. She had been observing John closely throughout the challenge, and something about his form struck her as unusual. Zora approached John and politely asked, "Excuse me, John, but I couldn't help but notice that your lifting technique is quite different from what we Zoraxians typically use. Could you explain your method?" John, happy to share his knowledge, nodded and replied, "Of course. On Earth, we place a great deal of emphasis on proper form and technique. We believe that the key to lifting safely and effectively is to maintain correct body alignment and to engage the appropriate muscle groups." Intrigued, Zora requested, "Could you demonstrate your technique for us? I think we all could learn something from your approach." John agreed and approached the barbell once more. As he prepared to lift, He taught the Zoraxians through each step of his process, explaining the importance of a stable stance, a tight core, and a controlled grip. As John lifted the weight, the Zoraxians marveled at his precise form. His body remained perfectly aligned, his movements smooth and controlled. It was a stark contrast to the more aggressive, force-focused style favored by Zoraxian lifters. When John completed the lift, Zora turned to her fellow Zoraxians and declared, "Did you see that?" His technique was flawless. Every movement was deliberate and controlled. This is something we've been missing in our own training. The other Zoraxians nodded in agreement, their eyes wide with newfound understanding. They began to pepper John with questions about his training methods, eager to learn the secrets of human strength. John, pleased to see the Zoraxians so receptive to his teachings, began to elaborate on the principles of human fitness. He explained the importance of proper nutrition, regular rest, and varied training routines to prevent stagnation and promote continual growth. As John spoke, the Zoraxians listened intently, absorbing every word. They realized that for all their advanced technology and raw physical power, they had much to learn from human wisdom when it came to cultivating true strength. Even Zax, who had been sulking at the edge of the group, couldn't help but be drawn in by John's words. He began to see that perhaps his defeat at the hands of the human wasn't a sign of weakness, but an opportunity to grow and improve. As the impromptu seminar continued, Zoltar approached John and placed a hand on his shoulder. "John," he said solemnly, "you have taught us a valuable lesson today. We Zoraxians have always prided ourselves on our strength, but we now see that we have been neglecting crucial aspects of our development. We would be honored if you would stay with us for a time and share more of your knowledge." John, humbled by the request, agreed without hesitation. He saw this as an opportunity not only to improve Zoraxian training methods, but to foster a greater understanding and respect between their species. In the days and weeks that followed, John worked closely with the Zoraxians, teaching them the principles of proper form, balanced nutrition, and holistic fitness. The aliens eagerly adopted his techniques and soon began to see remarkable improvements in their own strength and performance. Through John's teachings, the Zoraxians learned that true strength was about more than just raw power. It was about discipline, dedication, and a willingness to learn and grow. And as they embraced these lessons, they found themselves not only becoming better lifters but better beings. What had begun as a simple challenge in a gym had blossomed into a transformative exchange of knowledge and understanding. John had not only proven the strength of humanity, but had begun to build a bridge between two worlds, a bridge built on the foundation of shared wisdom and mutual respect. News of John's incredible feats of strength and his subsequent teachings spread like wildfire across Zorax. Zoraxians from all walks of life flocked to the gym, eager to learn from the remarkable human who had bested their strongest warriors and introduced them to new ways of training. John, for his part, embraced his role as a teacher and mentor. He worked tirelessly with each new group of Zoraxian students, patiently demonstrating proper form, offering guidance on nutrition and rest, and encouraging them to push past their perceived limits. His dedication and expertise quickly earned him the respect and admiration of the Zoraxian people. As more and more Zoraxians began to adopt John's training methods, the effects became undeniable. Lifters who had once plateaued found themselves setting new personal records on a regular basis. Athletes from other sports discovered that the principles of human training translated to their own disciplines, leading to dramatic improvements in performance across the board. The changes, however, went beyond mere physical gains. As the Zoraxians embraced John's teachings, they began to experience a shift in their overall mindset and approach to life. The human emphasis on discipline, dedication, and continuous self-improvement resonated deeply with the alien warriors, leading to a newfound sense of purpose and unity among the Zoraxian people. Even Zax, who had once been John's most vocal critic, found himself drawn to the human's teachings. After much soul-searching and a few humbling training sessions with John, Zax came to realize that his initial hostility had been born of fear and insecurity. In John, he saw not a rival, but a potential mentor and friend. In a remarkable display of humility and growth, Zax approached John and requested his guidance in preparing for the upcoming Zorax lifting championships. John, seeing the sincerity in Zax's request, agreed without hesitation. Over the following weeks, the two former adversaries worked side by side, with John coaching Zax in the finer points of human lifting technique and mental preparation. As the day of the championships arrived, the atmosphere on Zorax was electric. Zoraxians from all over the planet gathered to witness the competition, eager to see the results of John's teachings put to the ultimate test. When Zax took the stage, the crowd fell silent. The once brash and arrogant warrior now carried himself with a quiet confidence and focus that had been honed through his training with John. As he approached the weights, Zax took a moment to center himself, employing the breathing and visualization techniques John had taught him. Then, with a grunt of effort, Zax began to lift. The crowd watched in awe as the Zoraxian warrior hoisted weight after weight, his form perfect, his movements precise and controlled. It soon became clear that Zax was not only going to win, but was going to shatter his own previous records in the process. As the final weight settled back to the ground and the crowd erupted in cheers, Zax turned to John, who stood at the edge of the stage, beaming with pride. In that moment, any lingering doubts about the power of human knowledge and the potential for cross-species understanding evaporated. In the aftermath of the championships, as Zoraxians celebrated Zax's victory and the dawning of a new era in their society, John felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had come to Zorax as a stranger, a curiosity, but he would leave as a respected teacher, a trusted friend, and a catalyst for change. As John prepared to return to his ship and continue his journey through the stars, he took a moment to reflect on all that had happened. He knew that his time on Zorax had been transformative, not just for the Zoraxians, but for himself as well. He had learned that strength came in many forms, and that the power to change hearts and minds was perhaps the greatest strength of all. With a final wave to his Zoraxian friends, John boarded his ship, ready to carry the lessons of Zorax to new worlds and new civilizations. He knew that his journey was far from over, but he also knew that he would always carry a piece of Zorax with him, a reminder of the incredible things that could happen when two cultures met with open hearts and minds. As John's ship prepared to depart Zorax, the human ambassador found himself reflecting on the profound changes that had occurred since his arrival. What had begun as a simple visit to a foreign gym had blossomed into a transformative experience for both himself and the entire Zoraxian civilization. The impact of John's teachings had extended far beyond the realm of physical fitness. The Zoraxians had not only embraced new training methods and philosophies, but had begun to incorporate the principles of discipline, dedication, and continuous improvement into their daily lives. This shift in mindset had led to a noticeable increase in productivity, creativity, and overall life satisfaction among the Zoraxian populace. At the Zorax lifting championships, the fruits of John's labors were on full display. Zax, once John's fiercest rival, had emerged victorious, shattering records and showcasing the incredible potential of human training techniques. As Zax stood atop the podium, he had taken a moment to acknowledge John's role in his success, expressing heartfelt gratitude for the human's guidance and friendship. The other Zoraxian competitors, while not achieving the same level of success as Zax, had also demonstrated marked improvements in their performance. It became clear that those who had fully embraced John's teachings had gained a significant advantage over those who had clung to outdated methods. This realization sparked a renewed sense of enthusiasm and commitment among the Zoraxian athletes, who now saw the path to greatness illuminated before them. Beyond the world of sports, John's impact could be felt in the shifting attitudes of the Zoraxian people towards humanity as a whole. Where once humans were seen as weak and inferior, they were now regarded with a newfound respect and admiration. The Zoraxians had come to recognize that human knowledge and ingenuity could offer valuable contributions to their society, and they eagerly sought to establish stronger ties between their two civilizations. As news of John's success spread beyond Zorax, other alien races began to take notice. Delegations from neighboring systems expressed interest in learning from the human ambassador, hoping to glean insights that could benefit their own societies. John found himself at the center of a growing movement, one that sought to bridge the gaps between species and foster a spirit of cooperation and mutual understanding. For John, the experience had been nothing short of life-changing. He had arrived on Zorax as a mere visitor, uncertain of his place in the vast tapestry of the universe. But through his interactions with the Zoraxian people, he had discovered a sense of purpose and belonging that transcended the boundaries of species and culture. He had learned that true strength lay not in physical prowess alone, but in the power of knowledge, compassion, and the willingness to learn from one another. As John's ship lifted off from the surface of Zorax, the human ambassador looked out upon the sea of faces that had gathered to bid him farewell. Zoraxians of all ages and walks of life stood together, united in their gratitude and respect for the man who had changed their world. In their eyes, John saw the promise of a brighter future, one in which humans and Zoraxians would work hand in hand to unlock the limitless potential of the universe. With a final wave and a smile, John turned his gaze towards the stars, ready to carry the lessons of Zorax to new frontiers. He knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges and uncertainties, but he also knew that he would face them with the strength and wisdom he had gained from his time among the Zoraxian people. Armed with this knowledge and a renewed sense of purpose, John set forth, ready to continue his journey as an ambassador of humanity and a catalyst for change in the galaxy. The end.